Hello and welcome to another pattern tutorial. I am here to show you how to make the Khione Beanie. Originally, this beanie was designed to be a bonus pattern as part of the wind sweater collection. So the inspiration behind the name Khione is that she was the snow goddess in Greek mythology. She's not very popular. She in fact only had one really minor myth ascribed to her that we know of, and she was the daughter of Boreas, the wind god, who was definitely way more well known. And since the last sweater in the wind sweater collection was the Boreas, I thought it appropriate that a bonus pattern for a hat would be named in honor of his daughter. So I'm going to be actually using the same materials that I used in the Boreas sweater. You can use any materials that you want, obviously, to make your own, but I'm going to go ahead and go over what supplies you will need so that you can make your own version of this. So the first thing you'll need is some yarn. I'm just using a spare skein that I had when I made the Boreas sweater, which is just this Silky Singles fingering. It is 70% superwash merino, 30% mulberry silk, and it is a fingering weight yarn, 438 yards per 100 grams. So if you get a yarn similar in weight, then that should work. The other thing you'll need are some hooks. I have two hook sizes here. The main one you will be using is a size USC or 2.75 millimeter hook. And then your ribbing, when you get to the brim of the hat, I drop down to a size B or 2.25 millimeter hook just to kind of give it a slightly tighter ribbing to kind of snug or fit snugly around the head. The other thing you'll need are some notions. So one thing is that we will be working rounds continuously. So a stitch marker is going to be a must so that you can make sure you always know when you start a new round, so you know which instructions you need to start following. I also include here some needles here. So you're going to need needles to be able to weave in any yarn ends. And then you'll also need some scissors in order to cut any loose yarn when you get done. The other thing I don't show on here is blocking mats and blocking pins. You don't always have to block your hats if you just launder them like normal. Usually it's just fine. But for me, I oftentimes like to block just to kind of shape it in the way that I want to. Because we're going to be working continuous rounds, sometimes crochet tends to cause our stitches to lean a little bit when we do it that way without turning. So in order to get this design to straighten out, blocking will help you do that. So with all of your supplies in hand, you are now ready to begin your very own Khione Beanie. We're going to begin the Khione Beanie by working the crown. To do that, the pattern gives you two options. One is to do a magic ring, and the other is to chain two and work all of the first round in the second chain from the hook. For my purposes, I'm just going to go ahead and do the magic ring because I like the way that it looks and I can tighten it later. To do the magic ring, what you do is you take the end piece of your yarn and you wrap it around your first two fingers here. And I like to do it twice. And then I take my third finger here and I kind of grip that end with my pinky just to kind of hold it all into place. And then after that, I take my hook, I insert it under both of these first two strands and use my hook to grab that third strand and pull it all the way through. And then very carefully, as I'm kind of holding everything in place, I pull these fingers gently out of the loops, and that gives me my ring to work in. Once I do that, I'm then going to carefully chain one, and then I'm going to work 6 half double crochets inside my ring, or if you're doing the chain 2 and working in that second chain from hook, work 6 half double crochets into that chain and it'll form a circle. So I'm going to yarn over, go into this ring, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. First half double crochet is done. So then I'll just do 5 more to make my total of 6. Yarn over, go inside my ring, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. There's my third one. 4, 5, and 6. Then what I recommend doing at this point is kind of pulling your loop up a bit more and placing a stitch marker in there just to keep it secure, because this next part can sometimes pull loose your stitches. So to close this magic ring and create a circle, you go ahead and you find your tail here and you grip your stitches that you just made and your tail, and you start to pull, and you'll pay attention to which of these 2 loops it's pulling more of. It looks like it's pulling this one right here. So then I'm going to take that loop, grip it, and pull it so that it tightens the second loop here. It's kind of hard to see here. So we've got this loop on the on this side, and it's going to pull that other loop tight. Now, if you start pulling and find that you're accidentally pulling the tail end, stop pulling that direction, just pull the other direction. But in either case, you're going to tighten it like that. So now that our ring is closed, I can grab my tail and pull that loop all the way through. And I have now tightened my circle. So then that way I can start working in rounds. Okay. So since we're working in continuous rounds, one of the things I want to do is make sure that my stitch marker always marks my first round. So then that way I don't get lost as to which round I'm working. So I'm going to keep that handy for when I do this next part. So after you've done your 6 half double crochets, we're going to locate our first stitch of the next round. And in it, we're going to work 2 half double crochets. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into that first stitch, making sure we're going under both of those loops. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3. But I need to do 2 inside of this same stitch because we're starting to do some increasing. So I'll do a second one, yarn over, insert through that stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Now, since I've worked those first 2 stitches here, before I continue on, I'm going to mark that first stitch that I created right here. So then that way I know when I reach this stitch marker, I have finished my second round. Once I do that, I am now able to continue increasing by placing 2 half double crochets into each stitch around. So I've already done my first 2, time to do my next 2. So finding this stitch right here, those 2 loops, pull up a loop, pull through 2, and then I do that again a second time, yarn over, go through, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3, and then I'll do that again in this third stitch. And then into my 4th, 5th, and 6th stitches. So that's going to give me a total of 12 stitches in this round because I'm essentially doubling every stitch from the first round. And since the first round had 6 stitches, if I double that, I should get 12 by the time I reach that stitch marker. And here we are. My final stitch, I'm placing 2 stitches in. And I now have my 12 half double crochets worked in round 2. Now for round 3, this is when we start establishing some post stitches so that we have something to work our snowflake pattern into. So to do that, I'm going to show you the structure of your stitches. So if you'll notice the last stitch that we created, this last half double crochet, is not a perfectly straight stitch. Crochet stitches always lean one way or the other. It's just the nature of how the stitches are constructed. So if we look at these two legs here, that is the post of our stitch. If we look at the top of the stitch where our V is right there, those loops that look like little chains, that is sitting slightly off center from these legs. So that means that if we were to count these stitches or locate their posts, we would look for this shape here. So since I'm right-handed and I'm going from right to left, my loops on the top are always to the right of the post. So if I were to look at these legs here and wondering which of these two sets of loops on the top belong to it, I know, oh, it's going to be this one to the right, because for all of these, it's always to the right. So that tells me which stitch belongs to which post. Now that's important because for this next step we're about to start, we need to work a front post half double crochet around the first stitch. So if I look at this first stitch with this stitch marker in it, I know that it's going to be the right side of its actual post. So if I want to work my front post half double crochet, I look at this. Here, actually, let me take my stitch marker out to make it a little easier to see. There we go. I locate this stitch here, and I know it's to the right of its post that it's matched with. So I look to see its post is going to be right here. So that's going to be where I work my front post half double crochet. So I'll yarn over. Now if I need to, I can kind of like stretch these stitches a bit and find the legs of my post here. And I will go around that post, going around those two little legs there, and then yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all three, and that created my first stitch of this round, which is our front post half double crochet. Since that's the first stitch of the round, I'm going to go ahead and place my stitch marker back in there so that I don't lose my spot. And now I'm ready to continue with the next part of this round. So since I already worked a post stitch, I don't work into this top set of loops of that stitch because that counts for the post that I just worked around. So we'd want to make sure we don't accidentally work into that stitch. So for the next thing, I'm going to locate the stitch next to it, and I'm going to place 3 half double crochets into this stitch. So finding that next stitch, I will yarn over, go into that second stitch under both of those loops, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3. I then repeat that 2 more times into that same stitch. Once I do that, I am then going to just repeat those same 2 steps all the way around. Front post half double crochet, followed by 3 half double crochets into the next stitch. So where do I place my next post stitch? Well, it's not going to be here because that set of legs, if I look up and to the right, belongs to this stitch that I just worked into. So my next post stitch is going to be right here where this unworked stitch is located. So I will yarn over, go around the post of this stitch right there, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3. And then once again, making sure I don't accidentally work into the same stitch that we just did a post stitch on. Going to the next one here, I'm going to yarn over and do 3 half double crochets into that stitch. And then repeat again. Find my next stitch, work my post stitch, then find the one after that and work 3 half double crochets. And you just keep repeating that all the way until you get back to the beginning of to the end of this round. I just finished round 3 and I'm now ready to begin round 4. Round 4 can be a bit challenging just because of the number of stitches you're doing an increase of, but if you follow along and just take it one stitch at a time, it should be easily achievable for you. So I'm going to remove my stitch marker here because I want to be able to have full view of my first stitch. So around each of these post stitches, what we're going to be working is 5 total stitches. We're going to be doing a front post half double crochet, then a regular half double crochet, then repeat that front post and then regular, and then end with a final front post double crochet. So it's going to create kind of like a little 3-pronged fork looking thing with a post stitch, half double, post stitch, half double, post stitch, all inside of the same location. So to do that, we're going to locate our first front post half double crochet right here. And remember that its top loops are going to be the ones that are to the right. So, or if you're left-handed, it's going to be on the left. So we're going to work around this post, 1 front post half double crochet. I would kind of keep it loose because if it gets too tight on you, it's kind of difficult to work into these stitches. Once I make that front post half double crochet, I then look back here to the stitch, this first stitch. This time we actually do want to work into that one because we're making repeats inside of this same stitch to create our increase. So in this loop right here, or these 2 loops, I'm going to work a regular half double crochet. So I'm going to yarn over. And it takes a little bit of finagling, but kind of manipulate it, stretch it however you need to. Stick your hook in there, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. Then I repeat that same process again. Going around the post of the same stitch, I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook around that post, pull up a loop, keeping it loose. I'm going to yarn over and pull through all 3. I can kind of like, stretch it out a bit, move the stitches where I need them to go. There we go. Then finding that stitch that I worked into earlier, we can actually see the legs of that half double crochet right here. Into that same stitch here, we're going to work our second half double crochet. So yarn over, then go through that same stitch and pull up a loop. Then yarn over and pull through all 3. And then we're going to do 1 more front post half double crochet around this same post. Now it's getting a little bit crowded, but that's okay. There's plenty of room for you to be able to place all 3 of these post stitches here, especially if you've been keeping them fairly loose. I'm going to yarn over and then finding that same post stitch right here, post right there, going to insert our hook around that, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. And I now have, you can see if I stretch it out a little bit here, we have those 3 little forks that kind of do that. Got this one, the one in the middle, and the one on the left. And then we've got the 2 half double crochets. Very important is that we make sure we mark this very first post stitch with our stitch marker. So I'm going to follow my post, and then it's the one that's slightly to the right here for me, and stick my stitch marker into those 2 loops, and my first set of increases is done. After that, into the next stitch, we're going to work a regular half double crochet. So if I find my stitch here, these were the ones that I worked when I did my repeats here. This next one is going to be the one where I work 1 half double crochet. So yarn over, insert my hook into there. Now sometimes it can be a little tucked in because of the fact that we've crowded a bunch of stitches. So make sure you're not accidentally skipping this You want to get into those 2 loops that have not been worked next to the half double crochet we just did all that work into. There we go. Once you do that, the next stitch, you're going to place another increase in, but this time it's not going to be a bunch of post stitches. It's just going to be 3 half double crochets. So I'm going to yarn over, go into this stitch, and just place 3 half double crochets. And then in the one after that, I'm going to place 1 half double crochet. So if we repeat everything we just did here, all the way around, we're eventually going to start seeing that kind of forking snowflake pattern form. So breaking it down into 2 steps, basically, you're going to do, the first thing is this little forking where you're going to do a front post half double crochet, front post, half double, front post around the same stitch, followed by doing half double crochet, 3 half double crochets in that center stitch, and then another half double crochet, and you repeat that around. It's going to get very crowded and very, very wavy at this point, but don't worry, it all settles out in the end. So I'm going to demonstrate one more time, a little bit more quickly. Got this next stitch. We're going to do the 3 post stitches and the 2 regular half double crochets to create our fork. So I'm going to yarn over, go around that post stitch, work my half double crochet, then locating the stitch itself, the top of it, we're going to work our half double crochet, then work another front post around that same stitch, then work another half double crochet into that stitch again in the top, and then finish off with another front post half double crochet. I'm now done with that part of my repeat. Then I move to the next stitch, which I very carefully find. It's kind of tucked back here. It's going to be this next unworked stitch right here. I will work a regular half double crochet, followed by 3 half double crochets into the next stitch, followed by half double crochet into this next stitch. So then you just keep repeating that all the way around, and then I'll meet you back up for the next round. I just finished up round 4 and I'm ready to start round 5. As you can see, we've got a lot of waving going on, but it's already starting to get that nice snowflake pattern. So if yours looks like this, perfect. That's exactly what you're going for. So the next part is we're going to be doing some more increasing, but we're also going to be counteracting some of this with some decreased shaping. So that's going to kind of give us that nice little snowflake ridge pattern here. So I'm going to remove my stitch marker for my first stitch here. And what I'm going to do is in this next post stitch, I'm going to work another front post half double crochet, but then in the half double crochets that are between these fork prongs, I'm going to place 3 more half double crochets. You're like, oh my gosh, it's getting so crowded. It's okay. That's what it's meant to do. It's supposed to be a very rapid increase in these sections. So you're going to be stuffing a lot of stitches into these little prongs. So we're going to start by doing our front post half double crochet around this first front post stitch. And since that's my first stitch of the round, I want to go ahead and make sure I place my stitch marker back in there. Then into the next stitch, which remember, we want to make sure we don't skip it. We're going to stretch here. It's going to be this one that's right here in between. If we look at the top, we can see the front post half double crochet I just worked was around for this first stitch. So it's this next one I'm going to work into. I'm going to place 3 half double crochets into that stitch. Then I just repeat that again into this next prong and this next half double crochet. So I'm going to do another front post half double crochet here. And then into that next stitch, not the one I just worked around, but the next one, we're going to work 3 half double crochets. And then we're going to finish by placing a front post half double crochet into this last one. So front post half double crochet around that third prong. And you should now have a more spread out fork. Once you do that, you'll then locate these next 5 stitches here, the 2 on either side and then the 3 that we used to increase. And we're going to do a half double crochet 2 together around these next 2. So to do a half double crochet 2 together in this pattern, we're going to yarn over, find that first stitch that we need to work together, and insert our hook. And we're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. And normally we would finish this half double crochet, but because we want to work 2 together, before I do that, I'm going to insert my hook into that second stitch, then yarn over and pull up a loop through that one. And I should now have 4 loops on my hook. These 2 here are where we're going to be joining these 2 stitches together. And then these 2 are just my yarn over and the loop that was on my hook. So then I just yarn over and pull through all 4 at one time. Once I do that, I then work a regular half double crochet into this next stitch. And then follow it with another half double crochet 2 together. So in these next 2 stitches, I will yarn over, insert my hook through there, yarn over, pull up a loop, then insert my hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. 4 loops are on my hook. I will yarn over and pull through all 4. And now I have just done 2 half double crochets together. Next, I will find I'm back at a 3 prong, so then I just start my repeats again. I will work front post half double crochet, three half double crochets into my next stitch. So if I kind of stretch it out here, I can see my worked one that I just did, and then this next one is going to be where I insert my hook and work 3 half double crochets. And then repeat that for the next prong. I will front post half double around this middle one, and then work 3 half double crochets into my next half double crochet here. Nope, I did not go under both loops. Very important that I make sure I do that. There we go. Work 3 into that one. And then follow it up with one more front post half double crochet around the third one. Then across the next 5 stitches, I'll work half double crochet 2 together. Then a half double crochet. Then half double crochet 2 together. And that is your repeat all the way around for round 5. I just finished up my end of round 5, and I'm now ready to begin round 6, seeing it's very, very wavy. Once again, that is what it is meant to start doing so that it can give you that nice little snowflakey pattern. So for round 6, what we're going to be doing is, for every one of these forked areas, we're not going to be doing any more increasing at this point. So we're just going to be doing a front post half double crochet, half double crochet in each of the next 3, front post, half double crochet in the next 3, front post. So we're just going to do that. So we'll do a front post, half double crochet around this first stitch. Place my stitch marker in there to remind me that that's the beginning of the round. Then into these next 3. So again, sometimes that first one can be tucked a little bit behind our post stitch. I want to make sure we don't accidentally skip that one. We're going to work our half double crochet and then just work a half double crochet in those next 2 as well. And then repeat that again into this next prong and these next 3 stitches. And then one final front post half double crochet. And now I should be at these 3 stitches here before it repeats in the next prongs of our fork here. In this one, we're going to be doing a half double crochet 3 together to bring these all in cinched into the center. So to do that, it's very similar to the half double crochet 2 together. You're just going to do another one more time. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into this first half double crochet, yarn over, pull up a loop. Oh, I didn't actually go into the stitch itself. There we go. And then into the next stitch, I will insert, pull up a loop. And then in the third one, do it again. Insert, pull up a loop. This time I will have 5 loops on my hook. These 3 show how they're going to connect all 3 of these next stitches together. And then these 2, of course, are just my yarn over and the loop that was already on my hook, accounting for our full 5. Yarn over, pull through all 5 loops on our hook, and that will cinch together those 3 stitches. Once I do that, I'm then ready to repeat all of that again. So in this next stitch, I will just do my front post half double crochet, followed by working half double crochets in each of the next 3 stitches. Doing that again for this middle prong here. Front post half double, 3 half doubles, and then a final front post half double crochet. Then I do my half double crochet 3 together across these next 3. And voila, I just keep repeating that all the way around, and that will complete round 6. All right, I'm all done with round 6 and I'm ready to begin round 7, which I will admit can come off as being one of the more complicated sounding rounds when you try to read the instructions, but it's actually not too bad once you get into the rhythm of it. So the first thing we're going to do is actually skip this very first front post half double crochet and instead work into our second stitch, which is just a regular half double crochet. So I'm going to remove my stitch marker, and skipping this very first stitch, we're going to work a half double crochet into this next stitch. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3. And now this has become my first stitch of the round. So I'm going to go ahead and place my stitch marker in there. The next thing we're going to do is in this very next stitch, we're going to increase by placing 3 half double crochets into that one. So I'll yarn over, insert in there, make 1, 2, 3, and then another half double crochet into the next stitch. If you'll notice, these stitches were in the space between these first 2 prongs of this little fork here, and that's how we're going to be increasing between each one of those spaces. We're going to be working a half double crochet, 3 half double crochets, half double crochet. As for this middle prong here, we're just going to work a regular front post half double crochet. So we're not going to be increasing on that prong at this point. Once I do that, I'm then able to do my half, 3 halves, and half here. So half double crochet into this next one, 3 half double crochets into that next one, and then a half double crochet into this next one. And now we're going to find ourselves at this last prong of this fork and the first prong of the next fork. So what we're going to be doing is actually doing a front post half double crochet 2 together. So all that means is that we're going to do the same thing we did when we did half double crochet 2 together, but this time just around the post stitches. The idea is the same, except there's going to be a slight difference just to keep it looking a certain way. So to do the front post half double crochet 2 together, we're going to yarn over, go around the post of this third stitch, this third prong of this fork, and pull up a loop. Then we're going to yarn over again and go around the prong of our next set of this fork. So we're going to go around the post of this next stitch here and pull up a loop. And you'll see we should have 5 loops on our hook. The yarn over and the loop around the first post, the yarn over and loop around the second post, and then the active loop that was on our hook to start with. Once we have those all on our hook, we will yarn over and pull all 5 of those together. And that takes our 2 forks and joins them together in this little diamond point, just like in a snowflake. Once you do that, you are then going to skip the stitch that is behind it. So we have this next stitch that was right here. That was the front post double or front post half double crochet of our first prong here. Then the next one was the half double crochet 3 together from the previous round. And then this next one was the front post double crochet or front post half double crochet of the next set of prongs. So of these 3 stitches, we're going to skip all of those. So we're not working around this first, second, or this third one here. And instead, we will repeat starting in this 4th stitch here. So to repeat, all I do is what I did from the very beginning. I'm going to yarn over and do a half double crochet into this first stitch. Then work 3 half double crochets into the next one. Then a half double crochet into this next one. Front post half double crochet around that center prong of our fork here. Then repeat the half double, 3 half double in this space here. And then I'll be back to these 2 prongs here that are about to join, and I'm going to join them together with a front post half double crochet 2 together. So again, I'm going to yarn over, go around this first post here and pull up a loop, then yarn over and go around that second post, pull up a loop, 5 loops on my hook. So I'll yarn over, pull through all 5 to join it together, making sure that I skip those 3 stitches here. The front post that I did, the half double crochet 3 together, and the next front post. And then I just keep repeating that all the way around. Now, the difference here is that in the very end, you'll have to do something a little special with that skipped post stitch that we had in the beginning. So I'm going to work my way around, and I'll show you what to do when you get to that part. I've worked my way now around to the end where I have one final front post half double crochet 2 together to work. And what you'll note is that we only have this one left at the end of the round. But if you remember, we did skip that very first one at the beginning of the round. So that's the one we're going to use to create our front post half double crochet 2 together to finish out these last skipped stitches here. Because if you remember right, we skipped this first one, so that counts as these kind of 3 skipped ones here. So we're going to yarn over, go around the post of this last front post half double crochet, pull up our loop, yarn over, go around the post of that first skipped half double crochet, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 5, and we've just finished round 7. So to begin round 8, what we're going to do is actually a pretty simple repeat. So I'm going to take my stitch marker out here. And in that first stitch, I'm just going to work a half double crochet. Then I'm going to place my stitch marker back in there. And so that counts as my first stitch, and then I need to do a total of 5 half double crochets. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I'm going to work a front post half double crochet around this center prong right here. Then I'm going to repeat 5 half double crochets. So I will go 1, oh, sorry. My hook did not quite go in. Go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now you'll notice that we are at actually this front post half double crochet 2 together. So this point is actually going to be where I work my next front post half double crochet. So to do that, I'm going to yarn over, kind of find where these 2 prongs kind of met here in the middle, and I'm going to go around both of those here, kind of towards the top where they were joined. And then once I do that, I'm going to yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. I've now created another little stem for my snowflake pattern here, coming out of the tip of this little diamond. Once I do that, I'm going to make sure I skip this little bit right here that represented the top of this stitch basically. And so I'm going to go into this next one and repeat 5 half double crochets. And then front post half double crochet. And then I just keep repeating that around and around. I'll do 5 half double crochets, front post half double crochet. Now at this point, I could continue showing you how to do the remainder of the rounds for the crown, but all the techniques that are in the final rounds up to round 12 are the same as ones already shown here. So rather than show you those individually, you can always go back and look at any of the previous round video sections and see how to do, you know, like the half double crochet 2 together, the 3 together, working like, you know, the half double crochet, half double, or oh my gosh, working like the 5 stitches, like these little fork prongs here with the front post, the half double front post, half double front post around the same stitch. You can go back and rewatch any of those for any of those techniques. So what I'm going to do now is actually just finish up this round, and then I'm going to skip ahead to how to do the body. To work the body, you're going to have a series of increase rounds and non-increase rounds. And depending on your size, you're going to follow whichever ones they tell you to do. So for the size extra small, you're not going to be doing any more increasing once you reach the end of round 12 of the crown. You're just going to skip straight to working these non-increase rounds here. But for all the other sizes, it's going to reset to rounds 1 through 5 of increase rounds. And certain sizes are going to stop at certain rounds. So like, for instance, you might say like, you know, size small, you'll work 1 increase round, and then you'll skip to round 2, 3, and 4 of the non-increase rounds. Whereas something like size medium might work until round 2 of increases, and then it will start round 3 and 4 of the non-increase rounds. Same thing with size, you know, if you ended on 3, you would then go to 4. If you end on 4, you're like, oh, well, what do I do now? Well, since there's a forced round repeat in the non-increase rounds, you'll actually start non-increase round 1. So if this is a little bit confusing, it's just kind of like a pattern of like, you just pick up where you left off essentially. So the non-increase rounds are written to be written 1, 2, 3, and 4. The increase rounds are the same thing. The only difference is that one size goes up to 5 rounds, but treat that almost like just another repeat of round 1, but just increasing again. So to kind of break it down, if you end on round 1 for the increases, you'll start, so if you're increasing ends on round 1, you're going to start your non-increase round at round 2. You end on round 2, you're going to start on round 3 in the non-increases. You end on round 3, you start on round 4. You end on round 4, start on round 1 in the non-increase. You end on round 5, you'll start on non-increase round 2, and then you'll eventually be told to repeat a number of non-increase rounds over and over again. So wherever you are, you would then repeat from there. So for instance, if you ended on round 3, you start on non-increase round 4. You'll then do non-increase round 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, however many times it says for your pattern, for your size, to finish out the body. Once you do all of your repeats of increase and non-increase rounds, you are then ready to begin the ribbing part of your hat. I don't have a complete hat made, but I can still demonstrate how to do the ribbing on my little sample here. So to do the ribbing, what we're going to do is once you finish that final round of your hat, you're going to replace your size C hook with your B hook or whatever hook you're using for your ribbing. And you're going to place that in the loop. Then we're going to remove our stitch marker. You won't actually need that anymore. And if you'll notice, because we worked in continuous rounds, there's a slight jog. There's a little bit of a difference between the end of the round and the beginning of the round. So what we do to combat that is we insert our hook and just slip stitch into that very first stitch, and it evens out that unevenness that we had. Once you do that, you are then going to do a join as you go ribbing. So to do that, we start by chaining however many chains to create our brim. Now in the pattern, it's going to suggest a certain number of chains depending on your size. So then that way it's the appropriate length that you can fold it over and have a double brim, and it still show off that design on your hat. For this purpose, I'm just going to do a few chains here. Now, you can also adjust the brim of your hat. If you don't want a double brim, you could just do half those numbers of stitches. If you want an even bigger, thicker brim, you could always do more stitches. Or if you don't want it to be as thick but still folded over, you can do something kind of maybe in between halfway and all the way to the end. Regardless, this is a place where you can customize your ribbing however you want. But whatever you do, it's all going to be the same instructions after that. So once I have my chain made, in my second chain from my hook, I'm going to work a half double crochet. And then I will work half double crochets into every chain across. I almost said stitch, but they're not quite stitches yet. Then once I get into this last chain, I'm then going to find the next 3 stitches along the body of my hat, and I'm going to slip stitch into each one of those. So I'll just insert my hook into those next 3 stitches and just join with a slip stitch. Then I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to skip those 3 slip stitches along the body. That's literally just so that we can join. That's why it's called a join as you go. And then this very first half double crochet of my first row, I'm going to work a back loop only half double crochet. So if we look at our top loops here, we've got our one farther away from us. That's the back one. The one closest to us is the front one. We want to make sure we're working into that back one right here. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into just that back loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. And you'll even notice it kind of stretches that loop a little bit. That's exactly what we want because our ribbing needs to be stretchy. So we're going to work in every single back loop all the way to the end. So we're going to yarn over, insert into the next back loop of our next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3. And just keep doing this all the way across until you've worked a half double crochet back loop only into every stitch. All right. Once I do the end here, I make sure to check. I can count my stitches here that it's the correct number. So you just count every one of these V's. And if it's the same number as what you started with, then you're golden. If not, you probably have maybe, if you're off by 1, you probably are missing a stitch here at the end. Sometimes that's pretty common in a lot of crochet is that you miss that last stitch if you're not paying attention. So just double check your counting to make sure you're not dropping a stitch at the end. Once I get all my half double crochets across, I'm going to chain 1, kind of tighten it down a bit, turn my work, and then repeat, just working a half double crochet in the back loop all the way across. Okay, I am now working my final half double crochet in the back loop. And now I just repeat those 2 rows over and over again. So once I reach the body of the hat, I find my next 3 stitches here and I slip stitch into each one of those. So 1, 2, 3, turn my work, and I'm ready to begin working half double crochets in the back loop only. So you just keep repeating that all the way until you get to the end, and then I will show you how to join your ribbing together. Just to speed up the process, I went ahead and just kind of fudged and pretended I went all the way back around, but essentially the seam area is going to look very similar to this on your own hat once you work all the way around. One thing I do want to note is that since you're stitching slip stitches 3 at a time along the brim, you should get exactly 3 by the end, but if you don't, it doesn't really matter. You can kind of fudge your way through it. You can either work 2 stitches, or if you have 4 left, you can work 2 and then 2 again. It's whatever you want to do to make it look right to you. But in either case, you're going to work your final slip stitches. And then your final 2 repeats of your ribbing. And now you should be ready to join your ribbing together. So the first thing we'll need to do is slip stitch into the very first stitch of the round that we pulled this chain out of. So just kind of any place where you want to insert your hook and do a slip stitch. This just gives us a starting point. Then what you'll want to do is keeping your hook on the top. We're going to take the last row of ribbing that we just worked and place it on top of this chain from our very first row, like this. And we're going to join it by inserting our hook through the first stitch here of our last row, and then the corresponding chain of the first row here. Just insert our hook through both of those. And then underneath, we'll see that we still have our yarn here. We're going to yarn over and just slip stitch those two together. So I'm going to pull it through the chain and that stitch and the loop that was on my hook at the same time. Then I just repeat that into the next one. So making sure I'm keeping the last row on top of my first row. I'm going to insert my hook into that next stitch of the last row and the corresponding chain of the first row. Grab my yarn and pull it through, slip stitching both of those together. Now go slowly on this part. You don't have to rush this part. Make sure you're just going through every part. If you want to go through one at a time, that helps you, you can. So I just go through that first stitch first, then the second stitch second. Then if I need to, I can kind of turn and make sure I'm grabbing, oops, I came out. Insert, insert. Make sure I'm grabbing my yarn with my hook. I can slip stitch it through just that first chain, then through my stitch and the chain that's on my hook. I can do it in multiple motions. I can do it in one motion, whichever is easiest for you. And you just keep repeating that until you've joined every stitch and chain across. And then once you reach the final stitch and the final chain, you're able to fasten off, pull that loop all the way through, and then you're able to weave in all of your yarn ends, and then you can wash and block your hat. Obviously, this is just a little sample piece that I did, but obviously you'll have finished the entire hat. You'll have seen pictures at the beginning of this video, and also if you have the pattern, then you will see pictures in there as well, and you'll get to see what the final result should look like. But in either case, I hope you found this tutorial helpful. If you did, please make sure you give it a thumbs up to show that you like it. And if you want to support my channel, feel free to also subscribe so you can also keep up with future videos on more pattern tutorials to come. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.